Picture this. It's a Saturday morning. You're making breakfast. Your 7-year-old walks in from the backyard, holding up a drawing. A bright, lopsided rainbow with stick figure versions of your whole family underneath it. They're beaming. They spent an hour on this. And you glance over, flip the eggs, and say, "That's nice, sweetie." Then you look away. That's it. 12 words. 2 seconds of your attention. And here's what you don't see. Your child's shoulders drop just a little. Their smile fades. They quietly fold the paper and walk back to their room. Nothing dramatic, no tears, no outburst, just a quiet withdrawal. You didn't mean to hurt them. You didn't even realize you did. But according to child psychologists, that moment, and 7 others just like it that we do every single day, leave marks that can shape how a child sees themselves for years. So the question is, how many times a day are we accidentally breaking our children's hearts, and we don't even know it? Most parents genuinely believe they're doing a good job, and many are. But there's a gap, a silent space, between the love we feel and the love our children actually receive. And that gap is where invisible emotional wounds live. Today, we're going to close that gap. We're going to walk through 7 of the most common, everyday behaviors that hurt children's feelings in ways that research has confirmed. And more importantly, we're going to talk about what to do instead. Thing number 1, dismissing their emotions. Number 1, telling them you're fine when they're clearly not. Your child falls off their bike and starts crying. Your instinct? Oh, you're okay. It's just a scratch. Stop crying. You're trying to reassure them. You want them to feel brave. That makes complete sense from where you're standing. But here's the unexpected truth. When a child is told their feelings aren't real, their brain doesn't learn resilience. It learns distrust. Distrust of their own internal world. Dr. John Gottman, the renowned psychologist at the University of Washington, spent decades studying emotional dynamics in families. His research found that children who grow up with emotion-dismissing parents struggle more with regulating feelings as adults, have lower self-esteem, and find it harder to maintain healthy relationships. The child doesn't hear, "Be brave." They hear, "What you feel doesn't matter." And the more that message gets repeated, the more they start to believe it. The fix is simpler than you think. Instead of, "You're fine," try, "That really hurt, didn't it?" 2 extra seconds of acknowledgement is what the brain needs to process and move on. You're not making the pain worse. You're giving your child the emotional vocabulary to handle it. Thing number 2, comparing them to other kids. Number 2, comparing them to other children, even casually. "Why can't you be more like your sister? Look how well Tommy behaves. Your cousin got straight A's." You might say these things in the hope that they inspire your child, but the effect is almost always the opposite. Research from the University of California showed that social comparison in childhood activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. That's not a metaphor. When a child is compared unfavorably to someone else, their brain registers it the same way it registers getting hit. And the deeper wound isn't just, "I'm not as good as her." It's, "I'm not enough for you." Comparison subtly communicates that the parent's love is conditional, that if the child were different, smarter, more well-behaved, then they would be worthy. That belief, once planted, is astonishingly hard to uproot. The next time you're tempted to use another child as a benchmark, pause. Instead, speak to your own child's specific effort. "I noticed how hard you worked on that," is worth 1,000 comparisons to a sibling or a cousin they can never become. Thing number 3, half-present attention. Number 3, being physically present but emotionally absent. Here's a scenario almost every parent will recognize. Your child comes to you, tugging at your sleeve, wanting to tell you about something that happened at school. You're sitting right there, but your eyes are on your phone. You nod. You say, "Uh-huh." You're hearing them without actually listening. A landmark study from MIT Media Lab introduced the concept of technoference, the way technology interrupts real human connection even when we're in the same room. Children in these studies couldn't articulate exactly what was wrong, but they consistently reported feeling invisible and unimportant when their parents were distracted. Children are extraordinarily sensitive to attentional cues. They don't just want your body in the room, they want your eyes, your face, your full presence. Eye contact alone sends a neurological signal to a child's brain that says, "You matter. Right now, in this moment, you are the most important thing in my world." You don't have to put your phone down forever, but when your child comes to you to share something, give them 30 seconds of undivided attention. Look at them. Respond to what they actually said. That brief window of genuine presence is more nourishing to a developing mind than an entire afternoon of distracted togetherness. Thing number 4, laughing at their fears. Number 4, laughing at their fears or calling them silly. Your 5-year-old is terrified of the drain in the bathtub. They believe monsters live under the bed. They refuse to walk into a dark hallway alone. And it takes everything in you not to chuckle because honestly, it's kind of adorable. But here's where it gets complicated. Fear in childhood is not irrational, it's developmental. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, is hyperactive in young children precisely because their brains are still building the cognitive tools to assess actual threat levels. Fear of the dark isn't a personality flaw, it's biology. When we laugh at a child's fear, even gently, we don't eliminate the fear, we add shame to it. Now the child is not just afraid of the dark, they're also embarrassed about being afraid. They learn to hide their vulnerability rather than working through it. And children who learn to hide vulnerability often become adults who can't ask for help, can't admit weakness, and can't tolerate the uncertainty that real intimacy requires. Child therapist Dr. Dan Siegel calls this name it to tame it. When a child can put words to their fear, when a parent sits with them and says, "Tell me what scares you," the prefrontal cortex engages and starts regulating the amygdala. The fear becomes manageable. All it takes is someone willing to take it seriously. Thing number 5, breaking promises. Number 5, making promises you don't keep. You said you'd go to the park on Saturday. Something came up. You said you'd watch their recital. The meeting ran long. You said next time. Next time never comes. We break promises to children more easily than we'd ever break promises to adults, because the consequences feel smaller. Children don't get angry emails. They don't stop returning our calls. They just wait. And keep waiting. But here's what's happening developmentally. A child's sense of security is built almost entirely on predictability. When caregivers consistently do what they say they'll do, children develop what psychologists call secure attachment, a confident belief that the world is reliable and that they are worthy of being kept in mind. When promises are broken repeatedly, that foundation erodes. Harvard's Center on the Developing Child found that trust built in the first decade of a child's life forms the architecture of their adult relationships. And that trust is built not through grand gestures, but through dozens of small, followed-through promises. I said I would be there, and I was there. If you can't keep a promise, don't make it. And if something comes up, tell the truth. Apologize, genuinely. Children are more resilient than we think, but only when honesty is part of the deal.
Thing number 6, public criticism or embarrassment. Number 6, correcting or criticizing them in front of others. Your child does something wrong at a birthday party, grabs too many cupcakes, says something rude to another kid, throws a fit in the grocery store, and you correct them, loudly, right there, in front of everyone. You think, this is a teachable moment. I need to address this now. The problem is that shame and learning cannot coexist in the same moment. Neuroscience tells us that when the brain experiences social humiliation, being corrected, called out, or laughed at in front of peers, the stress hormone cortisol floods the system. In that flooded state, the prefrontal cortex,
The part of the brain responsible for learning, reasoning, and impulse control goes essentially offline. Your child isn't learning the lesson, they're just surviving the shame. Worse, the lesson they do absorb is not the one you intended. Instead of, I should share more, they learn, I am bad in front of people. And that self-concept, that persistent sense of public inadequacy, shows up in adulthood as social anxiety, people-pleasing, and a terror of making mistakes. The rule that most child psychologists agree on: praise publicly, correct privately. Always. Every single time. Your child's dignity is not negotiable, even when their behavior is. Thing number 7. Minimizing what matters to them. Number 7. Minimizing the things that matter deeply to them. They're devastated because their best friend didn't invite them to a birthday party. They're heartbroken over a video game loss. They're inconsolable because their favorite stuffed animal is lost. And you look at them and think, this isn't a real problem. Wait until you have real problems. And you're right, objectively. By adult standards, these are not crises. But here's the deeper truth that changes everything. A child's brain does not have an adult's sense of proportion. To a 7-year-old, the friendship rupture is the biggest loss they have ever experienced. It's not that they're being dramatic. It's that for them, in the only world they have ever known, it is genuinely enormous. Psychologists call this emotional invalidation, and its long-term effects are well documented. Children who consistently hear, "That's not a big deal," grow up struggling to trust their own judgment about what's important. They second-guess their grief. They apologize for their own pain. They learn to perform happiness rather than feel it. But there's something even more profound here. When you take your child's pain seriously, even when it seems small to you, you're teaching them something that no classroom ever could. That their inner life has value. That feelings are not inconveniences to be managed. That they are a person worth being understood. And that lesson, above almost any other, is what shapes who they become. Here's the part that most parenting conversations leave out. None of these 7 things are done by bad parents. They're done by tired parents, distracted parents, parents who are carrying their own unprocessed childhood wounds and doing the best they can with what they were given. The way we parent is almost always a reflection of the way we were parented, unless we pause, examine, and consciously choose differently. That's not about guilt. Guilt is useless here. This is about awareness, because awareness is where change begins. The research is consistent. Children don't need perfect parents. They need parents who are willing to repair, to notice, to say, "I'm sorry, I should have listened better." That kind of honest, humble presence is more powerful than any perfect response you could script in advance.
So here's a new way to think about it. Your child isn't just a small human you're keeping alive until they can do it themselves. They're a person in the middle of constructing their entire understanding of reality, of what love means, of whether the world is safe, of whether they are worthy of being seen. Every time you pause and really listen, you're building that architecture. Every time you keep a small promise, you're adding a brick. Every time you take their feelings seriously, even the ones that seem ridiculous, you're telling them something that no worksheet or lecture ever could. You are real to me. You matter. I see you. That's not small. That's everything. If any of these 7 things hit close to home, good. That feeling isn't guilt. That's love with new information. And that's where growth lives. Share this video with a parent you care about. Not to call them out, but to call them in. Because the more adults understand how children actually experience the world, the better that world becomes for everyone growing up in it.
And if you want to go deeper on the psychology behind how children develop emotional resilience, hit subscribe. We explore these kinds of questions every single week with real science, real stories, and a genuine belief that understanding human behavior is one of the most important things any of us can do. Take care of yourself. And take care of those kids. They're watching everything.